In 1947, the average American family lived on $42 a week. They owned their homes, they sent their kids to college, they retired with money in the bank, and they never carried a credit card. They were called the greatest generation for the way they fought a war, but the way they handled money may be the more impressive story. These are 10 habits they lived by every single week, including one so strange today you'd have to open the coffee can next to your grandmother's stove to find it. By the end of this video, you might understand why they could afford a house on one income and you cannot. This generation was born between 1901 and 1927. They lived through the Great Depression, the Second World War, and the rationing years that followed. According to Federal Reserve data, the United States personal savings rate in 1944 hit 21%. Today it sits closer to 4%. The habits that produced that gap were not accidents. They were rituals, repeated weekly, taught from parent to child. Let's start with the one that lived in every greatest generation kitchen drawer. Number 1. The cash envelope drawer. On payday, the husband cashed his check at the bank counter and walked home with physical bills in his wallet. At the kitchen table, the wife sorted those bills into labeled envelopes: rent, groceries, coal or oil, doctor, church offering, Christmas club. When an envelope ran empty, that category was done for the week. There was no overspending because there was nothing to overspend with. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics household budget studies from the late 1940s, this kind of cash-based budgeting was the standard, not the exception. Here's what nobody connects today. The envelope system was not a clever budgeting hack. It was the only way people could physically see their money leaving them. When we replaced paper cash with plastic, we did not just lose privacy. We lost the ability to feel a purchase. And the personal savings rate has been declining ever since. Controlling outflow was only half the discipline. The other half was making sure the house always had food. Number 2. The Deep Pantry. A greatest generation kitchen was not measured by what was on the table tonight. It was measured by what sat on the shelves for the next 6 months. Mason jars of canned tomatoes, burlap sacks of flour, tins of lard, salt pork wrapped in cheesecloth, hard cheese rubbed with wax. The pantry was a buffer between the household and the world. If wages got cut, if a snowstorm hit, if the breadwinner lost a week of work, the family still ate. Late summer canning sessions added between 200 and 400 quart jars to that shelf every year. The Depression had taught them what an empty pantry felt like, and they never let it happen again. We laugh at preppers today. They were called housewives in 1942, and every one of them, from Pittsburgh to Pomona, kept enough food in the cellar to outlast a winter. A full pantry kept food in the house, but what kept clothes on the family was something almost nobody does today. Number 3. The hand-me-down chain. We have forgotten what a coat used to mean. In a 3 or 4 child household, a single coat could see 10 years of service. The oldest got it new at age 6. At 9, it went to the middle child. At 11, the youngest got it. Then it was passed to a cousin in another town. Children were dressed by older siblings, by cousins, by neighbors. Nothing was bought new if a used version existed inside the family tree. Modern parents buy each child their own clothes, their own bicycles, their own school supplies. Greatest generation parents would have considered that a moral failing. Not because they couldn't afford it, but because they understood that owning more than you need is a kind of waste, and waste was a kind of disrespect, both to the people who came before you and to the people who would come after. Stretching clothes across 3 siblings was a frugality reflex. But when something genuinely had to be bought new, they used the system the credit industry has tried to bury. Number 4. The layaway counter. Department stores in the 1940s and 50s had a layaway desk in the back. You picked the appliance, the coat, the bedroom set. The clerk wrote a ticket. You paid $5 or $10 a week toward the price. When the total was met, you took the item home. No interest, no credit check, no debt. Sears, Montgomery Ward, J.C. Penney, Gimbel's, they all ran layaway departments, and they all made it the default option for working families. The credit card industry, which expanded after Diners Club launched in 1950 and Bank AmeriCard followed in 1958, spent decades pushing layaway out of American culture. They succeeded. Today, most major retailers have dropped the option entirely. Here is what we lost. Layaway taught a generation that waiting was free and that interest was a fee paid for impatience. Both lessons have largely disappeared. Layaway kept them out of debt for the appliances, but growing food on their own land made debt almost unnecessary for the table. Number 5. The kitchen garden. In 1942, the United States Department of Agriculture launched the Victory Garden program. By the peak in 1944, 20 million American households were growing their own food. The USDA later estimated that those gardens produced roughly 40% of all fresh vegetables consumed in the country during the war years. When the war ended, the official program closed, but the gardens did not. Greatest generation households kept tomato patches, bean rows, and squash hills running through the 1950s and into the 1960s. A summer's worth of vegetables from a backyard plot replaced what would have been $100 in grocery spending, in 1950s dollars, every year. Today, the average American backyard grows grass. Our grandparents would have called that a misuse of land. You may already be noticing a pattern across these habits. Hold on to it. We will name it at the end. The garden fed them in summer, but beside every greatest generation stove sat a smaller habit that fed the family year-round, in a way most Americans have completely forgotten. Number 6. The grease can. During the Second World War, the United States government asked American housewives to save the fat that dripped from their bacon, sausage, and pork roasts. Then to turn that fat in at the butcher's counter. From there it went to rendering plants, where it was processed for glycerin. That glycerin was used to manufacture nitroglycerin, which ended up inside artillery shells fired in France and the Pacific. The Office of War Information ran the campaign from 1942 through 1945. After the war ended, the campaign stopped. But the coffee tin beside the stove, with the slot punched in the lid, stayed exactly where it was. The fat went into hash browns, green beans, cornbread, and pie crust. Rendering at home cut the grocery bill by real money every month. Today we pour the same fat down the drain and pay for canola oil at the store. It is a small swap, but it is the kind of small swap that compounds into nothing. If any of this is starting to sound like wisdom your grandparents tried to pass down, hit subscribe. We tell these stories every week on this channel. Now, the second half. Number 7. The Christmas Club. In 1909, a banker in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, named Merkel Landis, invented a savings account that took weekly deposits, locked the money away until November, and paid it out in time for Christmas shopping. By the 1940s and 50s, virtually every neighborhood bank in America offered one. $1 a week, $2 a week, $5 for the better-off families. In November, you received a check that paid for every gift, every meal, and every decoration of the holiday season. Without it being a debt, without it being a panic. Greatest generation families did not finance Christmas. They saved for it, all year, on autopilot, in a passbook stamped by the teller. Today, Americans collectively put tens of billions of dollars on credit cards every Christmas season, and most of it is not paid off until April. Our grandparents would have been horrified. Quietly, but horrified. An automatic savings plan handled the holidays. But the most expensive purchase any household made required a much older discipline. Number 8. The 15-year car. A greatest generation household did not buy a new car every 3 years. They bought one car, used or new, and they kept it. The same Buick from 1950 might still be in the driveway in 1965. Oil changed every 3,000 miles. Tires rotated. Carburetor cleaned. Body waxed every spring. If something major broke, you fixed it. You did not trade up. Car loans were rare and short, often 2 years. The average length of ownership for a greatest generation family was somewhere north of a decade. Today, the average new car loan in the United States runs nearly 6 years, and the average ownership period before trade-in is under 7. The math has shifted entirely, and the wealth that used to compound in the family bank account now compounds in the auto lender's quarterly report. You may have spotted what every habit so far has in common. We are almost there. A car had to last 15 years. But the biggest financial decision in any greatest generation household followed a rule that has almost completely disappeared. Number 9. The 20% down payment. Here is the rule. You did not buy a house until you had 20% of the price saved in cash. After the war, returning servicemen had access to GI Bill mortgages with low rates and small down payments. Most greatest generation home buyers, GI Bill or not, still followed the older rule anyway. That cash served 2 purposes. It cut the size of the mortgage, often allowing 15-year terms instead of 30, and it built immediate equity, which protected the family if anything went wrong. The average greatest generation homeowner had their mortgage paid off in their late 40s. They lived the second half of their adult life with no housing payment. Today, the average American homeowner carries mortgage debt into their 60s. The asset is the same. The discipline around it is not. Every habit on this list, from the envelope drawer to the down payment, flowed from one foundational rule, the rule that almost nothing in modern life encourages. Number 10. The 2-week rule. Before any non-essential purchase, you waited 2 weeks. Not because the bank made you, not because layaway required it, because the household culture demanded it. A new coat caught your eye in November. You wrote it down. You walked past the store window for 14 days. If, on the 15th day, you still wanted the coat, you bought it with cash. Most of the time, you did not. Most of the time, the wanting evaporated. The 2-week rule was not a budget tactic. It was a philosophy. It treated the brain as something that could be tricked into wanting things, and it treated patience as the only reliable filter. Modern advertising is built on the opposite principle. Buy now. One-click checkout. Same-day delivery. The 2-week rule was the firewall. We took it down decades ago, and we have not replaced it with anything that works as well. So those are the 10 habits. Now look at them together. Every single one falls into one of 4 buckets. See your money, with the envelope drawer and the passbook stamped by the teller. Make it last, with hand-me-downs and the 15-year car. Stretch it, with the pantry, the victory garden, and the coffee can next to the stove. And wait for it, with layaway, the Christmas club, the 20% down payment, and the 2-week rule. None of these required an app. None required a financial advisor. They were taught at the kitchen table, repeated weekly, and passed down like silverware. Somewhere between 1960 and today, we stopped passing them down. Most Americans now could not tell you what their grandmother kept in the coffee can beside the stove, or why. That is the wisdom this channel is trying to remember. If any of this hit home, subscribe. Next week, we are walking through how your grandparents lived on $50 a week and still managed to save. The math is real, the methods are recoverable, and the lessons are waiting on a shelf in a kitchen pantry for us to remember.